First, we're going to start with the tabs, which are going to be sewn at this part of the bag to hold onto the rings and then attach the strap. So we're going to put right sides together, and my lining already has interfacing on it. And then the wool really doesn't have a right or wrong side, so you can just pick a side and place those together. And then we're going to sew along the long sides of this and turn it right side out. Okay, so now I have the tab sewn, and this is small enough that you can just use your fingers to turn it right side out. Or if you'd like a little help, you can use a chopstick or a knitting needle or some other tool. And I have a chopstick here, and I'm just going to push that in from the other side. And it helps if you get it started so you have something to push against. And just pop that through the other side. And just work out the seams with your fingers. Okay, and then I'm going to press that. And I'll press it from the lining side. And then I'm going to top stitch it with the wool side up. Now, if you wanted to, you could have your bobbin thread be a different color. In this case, navy bobbin with the turquoise color for the top stitching, but I'm just going to leave mine turquoise for the top and the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to trim that off a little bit, even it up. And I already have another tab sewn, and I'm leaving these edges raw because those will be caught in the seam, so there's no need to finish those ends. But these tabs will be holding our rectangular rings, which the straps will attach to. So I'm going to set that aside for the moment. And we're going to sew our strap. So again, like we did for the tabs, we're going to place these right sides together. And I already have my interfacing on the lining. And what we're going to do this time, because this is a longer piece and it's going to be harder to turn right side out, I'm going to sew both the long sides and across the end and leave one end open. And then I'll show you how to use this turning tool that's got the tube and the chopstick. All right, I'm going to sew this at 1/4 inch. Okay, we have that all sewn. And before I turn it right side out, I want to clip the corners of the seam allowance. And you want to make sure that you don't clip your threads there at the end. And then to turn it right side out, there's a couple ways to do this using this tool. But basically what you're going to do is put the tube inside the strap. And then one of the reasons that you have the end sewn across is because you need something to push against. So if this was an open end, you wouldn't have anything to push against to turn it right side out. So then I'm going to push the chopstick down. And sometimes with bulkier fabric or a lot of interfacing, this is a little more resistant to turning. So if this was really thin fabric, you'd be able to push the chopstick straight down through the tube, but basically this is enabling it to go back over that chopstick. And then the tube comes out the other side, and you pull it inside out like that. And then while the chopstick is in there, you can kind of use that to push out the corners. So in that instance, you really could have just done it with the chopstick and not the tube, but this is a really great tool for a little bit lighter weight fabrics. So then you just have to get the chopstick out of there. And then we're going to go ahead and press this flat. And I think, one of the trickiest things about sewing something like this is really getting that seam rolled all the way out to your stitch line, and kind of maintaining the width of the strap that you want. So one of the little tricks I like to use is using a paint stick, and that can go inside. And I actually put it this way at first when I press, so that it's like a little mini ironing board inside, and I can really flatten out that seam without making creases, deep creases on the front and the back, if that makes sense. So then you can just move that along. Actually, I'll press from the other side while I'm down here. And that just helps open up that seam. And then flip that over. All right, then I'll pull that out. So this strap width is finishing at 1.5 inches, which is also the width of the hardware I'm using. So the paint stick fits just inside there perfectly. And it would also work for a wider strap, but not a narrower one. So now I'm going to flatten this out with the lining side up and give it one more press. Okay, so we're done pressing that, and we can go and do our final top stitch on the ends of this. So the one end, the closed end, obviously is already a clean finish. The seam allowance is on the inside, but this end that we turned through needs to be cleaned up. So I'll just trim off that uneven end, and then I'm also going to just tuck the seam allowance in at this end, which is a little fiddly, but just kind of roll that in, and I'll give that a little press too, and that'll help. All right, okay, so I'm gonna take this and top stitch just like I did on the little side tabs. Pivot at this end, and this top stitching will close this opening. Okay, the strap is done, and we're going to set that aside for a moment because we have to attach the tabs and the lining before we can do the strap. So we'll set that aside, and we'll come back here to the bag, and we're going to grab our little side tabs, and these are going to attach at the top sides of the bag. So we want to machine base those now because we're going to have a lot of layers happening here, and we want to just make sure that they're not going to move around. So we'll put these here, and we're going to line up our raw edges and pin those into place. And so those are centered right on that side seam. Okay, and then we're also going to grab the flap that we've already sewn, and we're going to turn the bag over to the back, and let's find the center of the flap and the bag real quick here. So I'm just going to fold that raw edge in half and mark the fold with a pin, actually a straight pin. And then I'm going to do the same here. Just fold this quickly, find the center. Okay, so you're going to want to lay this with wool to wool, so it's right sides together, and basically this is gonna, when it's closing, it's gonna flip over like that. So you want it to be this way. And you'll notice that these have opposing curves, and it's pretty subtle, but it'll help keep the shape of the bag better if you follow the curve. So this one, it's an identical curve, it's just a mirror image of the top edge of the bag. So we'll pin that together. Okay, so we're going to take this to the machine and just baste at the 2 tabs and across the flap. So you'll do that just shy of a 1/4 inch. All right, so now we have the exterior part of the bag done, and we are going to get our lining and attach that to the exterior bag.